Hey viewers, in our previous video, we have completed the Helloworld program. In this video, we have discussed about the variables and the data types. Variables and data types are must to be learned as basics of C++ programming. So let's start the video. As we know, computer is a machine which takes data input from the user and gives output according to the given input. In C++ programming also, we normally use cin character input to take input from the user. The data given by the user should be stored in a memory. If we can give some name to the memory we have allocated where we store a particular data, then it will be useful for us to access it or rewrite it or remove the data from it or use it again. We call the memory space as a variable, and the name which we give to the variable is called a variable name. Some of the examples of the variable names are like x, y, my variable, my var, but we cannot write the variable names as we need. There are some rules we need to follow when we are writing a variable name. The variable name can only contain letters, digits and underscore. The variable must begin with a letter or an underscore, but not with a number. Names are case sensitive, which means small x and a capital X are different variables. Names cannot contain white space or special characters like hashtag, ampersand or modulus. C++ reserved keywords like cout, cin, int, float, etc. cannot be used as a name. Before going to discuss about the data types, how memory is managed. The smallest part of the memory is known as a byte, and 8 bits is equal to 1 byte. When we are actually dealing with memory, we normally talk in terms of bytes and not in bits. We have discussed about the variables, but when we are declaring a variable, there is a problem. Let me explain the problem with reference to a situation. In our kitchen, if you want to keep salt in a container, we prefer to keep it in a small container rather than a big one. Just like that, if we want to keep any pulses, we keep it in a large containers rather than a small container. But if we keep small amount of salt in a large container, there would be a wastage of storage. Just like this, when we are storing data into the memory, if we try to allocate all the types of data into the same amount of memory, then there will be a lot of memory wastage. So to solve this problem, we classify the data into data types. There are three main categories: primitive data types, derived data types, and user defined data types. Primitive data types are integer, float, character, boolean. Derived data types are functions, arrays, pointers, and reference. User defined data types are class, structure, union, enum. In this video, we are going to discuss only about the primitive data types, derived data types, and the user defined data types. We shall do it in later videos. Let's now go into the details of the primitive data types. The first primitive data type is integer. It can store a decimal value like 1, 2, 3, 10, 100 or even larger value. The keyword used for integer is int, and int occupies 4 bytes of memory. The second primitive data type is float, which stores fractional values like 3.14, 5.96. The keyword for float is float. Float occupies 4 bytes of memory. The third primitive data type is character, which stores all the values which are present in the ASCII table. As you can see, this is a ASCII table. Here, if I want to store any character into the memory, we declare it with a single quote. Then the number corresponding to the character is stored in the memory in terms of binary form. The keyword for character is char, and character only occupies 1 byte of memory. Fourth primitive data type is called as boolean. It can only store 2 values which are true or false. Keyword used for boolean is bool. It is basically used when we are dealing with conditions. So let's now try to use the variables and data types in the code. So we are in our code blocks IDE. Let's start to write our code. Now over here, I am including a comment which will be ignored by the compiler. We can add a comment by adding a double forward slash. So I am writing a comment in this program. We are going to take a input from the user, give out the data entered by the user, and give the output of how much data the variable has taken. First of all, we need to declare a variable. So I am declaring a int variable first of all. It can be done by adding a keyword int space A. At the end of the line we need to have a semicolon. Then I am using a print statement cout give A value. Then in the next line I am using a cin followed by an abstraction operator which takes input from the user. Now we got our data. Now I need to print the same data along with the size of the memory occupied by the variable. At the end I am using a function called as size of, which gives the memory occupied by the variable. So it is already declared in the iostream.h file, so I am just using it. Now let's build it. We have no errors in the code we have written, so we can run it. We got our output. It is asking me to give a value, so I am giving it as 5. The value of A is 5 and the size occupied by the A is 4 bytes. So let's now do the exact thing for float, char and boolean. I am giving float value as 3.14. I am giving the character as A. I am giving the boolean value as true. Now we are done with our code. Let's try to build it. We have no errors. We can run it now. We got our output. A occupies 4 bytes of memory. B occupies 4 bytes of memory. C occupies 1 byte of memory. And D occupies 1 byte of memory. That's all for today. If you have enjoyed the video, drop a comment. Don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe to Autodidact. And click on the bell icon to be notified on all updates from Autodidact.